Hello, everybody, and welcome to this open roundtable of the Open Knowledge Foundation. We're calling these series of talks the AI Learning Labs. It's part of an initiative where we work with organizations that have different challenges with AI, and then we co-create a collaborative learning process where we bring people together from the open knowledge community and from sort of other projects that we can learn from and be inspired from. And then we solve a practical problem. Today's practical problem is how to digitize a physical archive to work strategically with AI. And then based on this sort of case study or this pilot project, we're also going to be developing some learning materials that will be translated into different languages and where we can support other people who might be facing a similar question or similar challenge, understand from our process as well. So it's about knowledge sharing and meeting this moment of AI inspiration, confusion, fear, anxiety. I think so many organizations are trying to figure out what to do with AI, whether to do anything, how it applies to their work, and if and when they are going to use it, under what conditions or what types of technology. We had around 80 registrations for this call. So I know that a lot of people are going to be eager to hear from what is going on, from what people have to share. And that's why we're also recording the call, and we're going to be making it available online. I guess we have a couple of people here who have been invited as speakers, who are really people whose work I find deeply inspiring, both in terms of human rights archival, under-resourced language archival. You'll hear all about their projects. I guess the first person I wanted to invite to say hello is Alejandro, who is based in Guatemala and is working on the project that we're using as a case study, that we're centering part of this conversation on. And Alejandro, I wonder if you could explain to us, what is this project that you're working on? What is the archive that you want to digitize? And how did all this come about?
All right, sure. Thank you very much, Solana, and thank you everybody who's taking part in this roundtable today. It's a big honor and pleasure to share this hour and a half with you. Yeah, probably I can give some general context of what Avanzo is, so that we can then frame more specifically the question about what the archive that we want to digitize is. And in a very broad perspective, Avanzo is a research institute that was founded in the mid-80s. During a very complex political time in Guatemala. We were still in the midst of civil war here. And that was a moment in which kind of free thought, possibilities of having more open ways of doing research and exchange research outputs was not necessarily something that was possible, because a lot of intellectuals and academics were being prosecuted and were being killed, and it was like a terrible moment in these last decades of the Cold War that were actually very hot here in Guatemala. So this moment was pivotal to think how we were going to be able to. Okay, I say we. I was a kid back in the day, but the founders of Avanzo were thinking how was going to be possible to carry out research in such a political context. On the one hand, but on the other hand, also how to create a form of research that was more linked to what we call back in the day the popular sectors, in terms of people who were coming from working class environments, and people that weren't necessarily having access direct to um, uh, formal higher education in some sense, but that were also considered to be strategic allies to develop a different form of research in Guatemala. Which was somehow something that I believe created since the beginning, or had since the beginning, like these seeds that we are trying to put together now with open knowledge, in terms of how to create a form of doing research that is entangled with a more broad perspective of the knowledge that is being produced, but also how the knowledge that or trying to answer questions of how knowledge can be circulated among broader sectors in society. So that's like the origin of Avanzo. One key, like very transcendental moment of Avanzo was in the early 90s, where in the late 80s, sorry, where Mirna Mack was murdered. She was one of the main researchers of Avanzo. And that was a moment that Avanzo had to engage more deeply in these ideas of how to go ahead and do this kind of research, because the point was like, this was a state murder. And the point was that they were not going to be able to silence this kind of knowledge production and circulation. So I think that in those, that general framework, Avanzo developed a line of research that focus around different, I will say, like core research areas. We work with peasant studies. We work with early gender feminist perspectives. We work also with social imaginaries, urban studies, things that weren't necessarily being carried out by much people in the country back in the day, because it was like a complicated thing to do. So during that time, they also created what was later called CENIF, which is El Centro de Documentación, the Documentation Center, which since very early started to gather and to collect different sources, different kinds of documents that were going to be useful not only for the research that people were doing in Avanzo, but the whole point was to create also a space where people that were coming from schools, from universities, or people from abroad could eventually have the chance to have a systematized space with documents that were being collected in that specific period of time, that later, of course, were changed, after the signing of the peace accords, and then the whole transitional process that has happened in the last 20 years. And in the end, this center this documental center became like something very big, very powerful in terms of what it entails, because it has like put together an effort of collecting information that was being actually produced and was very relevant for this transitional moment in the regional perspective, political, anthropological, sociological, economical, and all these relative or related sources. So the thing is that the man who was in the middle of it was Juan Van de Beire. He is an librarian who's, he's not working there anymore, but he pushed a very big effort in order to make this possible for several years. And then in the last few years, with the modifications of the solidarity programs and charity and all the counterparts or all the stakeholders that were supporting Avanzo left the country, because this multinational, transnational politics in terms of charity and solidarity change from time to time. Central America stopped being like so relevant. So it changed the material conditions of how this documentation center could be stored. At some point, the access was less possible because we didn't have money to sustain, salaries and people to work on every day there. And now, I mean, it is still possible to access to the documentation center, but at some point it's very, very difficult. I mean, it will require like an immense effort to do this. So some years ago, we started to talk with Clara Arenas, who is Avanxo's director, and started to think about strategies to see how to, you know, uh, resuscitate or recharge the possibilities and somehow explore ways to exploit all the potential that the documentation center has. And it was probably until last year, in December last year, that I had this conversation with Renata Avila, and we thought, okay, I mean, I told her about this whole situation, and we thought, okay, probably we can start talking about developing a strategy that could entail at least two main elements to work with the documentation center, and it was somehow the idea of how to preserve the documentation center so that like these material conditions are not going to make it disappear, and that will probably be possible through a process of digitization, and the other will be to see and to think how this digitization will allow to enable processes of having more open access to the documentation center in this complex material reality we are going through here in Central America. So thereafter come the idea of thinking, okay, probably we can think like these two like pillars. On the one hand, the digitization, and on the other hand, thinking alternative ways of accessing. And then we started the conversation. That was something we started to do with Solana, of thinking about using AI tools, developing AI models that could be developed, like in a small scale. But probably we can make the scale bigger and bigger, conforming the time passes. At some point, that it will allow that all these documents that we have here that are, like our books, our research reports, our research audio recordings, transcriptions, old magazines, old collections of anthropological publications, all these kinds of resources that are part of the documentation center could eventually be able to. So what we're thinking now, or what we are like, trying to work with now, is how to carry out the process of digitization as a first step of this like relaunching of the documentation center of Avanxo. But we want to do the digitization not only in the traditional, what somebody could have done 20 years ago or 10 years ago. That would be only imply scanning the documents and having the scans there, but making a more comprehensive way of processing this documentation, this digitization of the documentation of the documental center. And eventually that is more dynamic and more, how to put it, contemporary actualized process will allow to develop or to create conditions to further exploration in the development of this AI in order to access to these resources. So I think that more or less that will be general.
Yeah, that's a fantastic overview of the importance of the material that you have in the documentation center. But I think you also raised something that probably most people who are listening here will relate to, this idea that young people, students, there's this fear they don't know how to access paper archives. They're relying increasingly on AI. That's how they're beginning to do their research more and more often. And so when we think about a project to digitize, how do we do things that we don't make decisions that we can't take back later, or that will require enormous effort to correct later? How do we make sure that we enable the opportunity to work with AI, even if we don't necessarily know exactly what we want to do with it yet. I think that's part of what they're thinking at Avanzo. And I'm curious to hear how others have been approaching this, because there is the immediate question of digitization and the software and the technology and what you do, but this being the Open Knowledge Foundation and folks who are really invested in the missions, we're also thinking about data governance and what type of technology we use and how does it reflect back to the communities that we represent or the things that we want to do. And that's why we've invited people who have worked on different kinds of archival and different kinds of digitization to help us understand how they have approached some of these both technical decisions, but also governance decisions or licensing decisions, and to see how it might inspire what is happening in Guatemala, but also what other people who are listening to this call may be thinking about. Subhashish, I wonder if I could welcome you and introduce you. You've had a lifelong career, fascinating career, archiving languages, especially. I wonder if you could tell us what you work on and what resonates with you after this long career working on these topics or related topics.
Thank you so much, Solana, and thank you so much, everyone, for listening. As Solana said, I have been working for a very long time documenting languages, particularly indigenous and endangered languages from India, but also from other South Asian countries. And I've mostly worked together with communities. So it's community members that have been involved in the entire process of documenting languages together. I founded a project called OpenSpeaks in 2017. And then the goal was to document languages together with communities and building open educational resources so that community members that are interested in documenting their own languages can learn and do the same in their own ways. However, over the time, we have seen a significant shift in the ways we have been working. So there are four major areas we focus now. First is, of course, we continue to document languages together with communities. In the last 2 years alone, we have worked together with about 20 different communities in Nepal, India, and Sri Lanka, and have documented those languages. It also includes my own mother tongue, which is less documented in audiovisual media, though it's not a low-resourced language. And now we also focus on many other aspects, because these are the challenges that we didn't face 8-9 years back, but now we increasingly face them again and again. So we see there's a lack of know-how for communities to document their own languages and archive them properly, and also use their languages in different meaningful ways. So we train communities, we build open educational resources, and we distribute them to communities so that they can adapt, they can translate, they can make their own versions using ours as a substratum. We also identified through research the lack of tools that are required for language documentation and archiving. So we have started building these tools. We have obviously using several tools, and we primarily use open source tools, but where we see the lack of tools or lack of technological resources, we try to fill those gaps by creating. And again, we work together with the open source community and try to create these tools. I've just shared a link in the chat. This is an announcement of 3 tools that we recently released. And one of them is called Subtitler. It helps people subtitle any audio and video in any language in another language. So it helps people captioning and subtitling, which is very essential for accessibility. And we have a set of other tools and utilities that we have created and shared. We have worked a lot with digital archiving, not so much with physical archives. We do have some experience working with physical archives, and I'll come to that in a little bit later. The other thing that we focus is to understand how people have been, how communities have been archiving in their own ways. So for example, last year, we came across this private archive in Nepal that was originally created by a friend, Sandeep Chaudhary, who speaks the Eastern Tharu language. And he originally wanted to write a book about the traditional knowledge of the traditional healers of his community and their knowledge of different medicinal plants. However, he never managed to publish the book, though he wants to do that in future. And through that discussion, he showed interest, and we are now archiving the materials that he had collected. So we have been doing this a lot, looking at private archives that might not ever see the light of the day, and we're trying to archive it in a meaningful way so that the community has access to the archives materials. We now have collaboration with two language archives. One is the ELAR, the Endangered Languages Archive, which is based in Berlin. The other one is Language Archive Cologne, and we're trying to collaborate with more archives regionally as well. Last November, three of us, Tochi Precious from Nigeria, Bianto are from Indonesia, and I together built this conceptual model called Wikivoice, and we're trying to build this slowly. Eventually, what we want to do is to have a platform for communities to document and archive their own languages using open source tools, and also have private archives so that they can use it for their community, and the community's knowledge is not lost. The project that I personally have worked on, which is a physical archive or a physical library, is something that was created back in 2009, I believe. There were a group of science enthusiasts. One of them is a scientist, the other one is an agriculturist, a couple, and then their colleagues, and they together started this archive or archiving work with a lexicon that was printed in the 1930s and 40s. It was in 7 volumes, and it was really difficult to get at that time. Even today, it's very rare. But this book using a very sort of wide setup, and after they did that, they started basically putting the 7 volumes of this lexicon online. Then University of Chicago collaborated with them, and they started digitizing this lexicon. So many of us in the Wikimedia community were interested in creating a dictionary using Wiktionary. So the first thing that we looked up is online dictionaries that were available. And at that time, there was just this one lexicon. So more than 100,000 head words were brought from this lexicon because they digitized. And we then started adding pronunciations of words. So now it's a massive project, and we have more than 100,000 pronunciations associated with the head words in this dictionary. So what I want to close by is that when physical archived knowledge is digitized, then they have a life of their own. And sometimes we can't imagine, we can't fathom what that life would be. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. That's lovely, a lovely way to end. I wanted to next invite Felipe is here. And Felipe is based in Chile, or not based in Chile, from Chile. You can tell us, Felipe. Is your camera?
I'm sorry. I think my camera is on right now? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, tell us about your project, your projects in Terreno, and also you're also the president of the Open Platform Archive Network, which was how I first found you. I'd love to hear more about your work and what resonates with you about the questions we're talking about today.
Perfect. Thank you, Solana, very much for the invitation. I'm sorry that I couldn't prepare too much for this conversation. But now I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm finishing my studies in a master's program of digital humanities. And it has been really enriching to learn a lot of tools and to dive into the AI and technology world. I'm from Chile, like you said. I started in Terreno, that it's a photographic and collaborative archive. Why it's collaborative? Because it fuels itself with the participation of users all around the world, but especially from Chile. We specialize in, like I said, in photographic archives, and we've been digitizing thousands of photographs from 11 years ago, that they go from the 1800s to the year 2000. We digitized more than 100,000 images by now, but our main struggle is how to upload them all to the platform. Parallel to that, we have more than 7,000 users that have been uploading photographic, their own memories and photographs to the platform. You can see the platform in terreno.com. And specifically for the digitization part, we haven't really used AI for that processes. We've been working with universities and some students and teachers from that university in Santiago, the capital in Chile. But mainly we've been working with a lot of municipalities and institutions that they want to preserve their history, and we help them to digitize and to give context to the images and publish them so more people can access to them and use them for academic or cultural purposes. While I was working in Terreno for the past 10, 11 years, I was contacted by a group of people from the US and Europe that they were creating this movement of people that they work with vernacular photographs from more than 12 countries. And that's when OPAN was born in 2023, and it's a federation of vernacular archives that we say that it's from the bottom up, because we are used to have these institutional archives in our countries that they usually cover all the political aspects and big institutions and like the mainstream part of the history that we documented in the past years, but we neglected all the family archives, the day-to-day memories and emotions that all the people have and they want to preserve and share with their communities. So we gave them a space for that it's en Terreno, the platform. And one of the ways that we've been using AI is to how to amplify the participation using AI for coding and giving new tools for the community so they can participate even more in the platform. And it has been really good to implement. We've been working in the last years in some tools for the platform, and even we've been designing some games for to explore and discover new images or new photographs related to the topic that you want to search in the platform. One of the questions that you sent me was, how do we sustain this work during this whole decade? Like I said before, we've been working with some universities, but we also offer some participation to institutions that they work with communities, for example, municipalities in Chile, that they don't have their own archive, their own photographic archive, but they want to build one because it is a great way to communicate and to express their own culture with their communities. So the communities are building the archives, not the institutions themselves, but they allow with the tools in the platforms to present them and to give a space to them. Now with OPAN, we are welcoming a lot of initiatives from different countries, so they can join to this movement. They can, you don't have to apply or anything. You can contact us, and we're working with best practices guides. We are working with a lot of, because we know that professional archives, they have big resources, they have a lot of big teams, they have big equipments and everything, but usually when we talk with these little archives that are being born in different countries, they don't have a lot of people working there, they don't have a lot of resources, so we try to give them guidelines to how to work better with their digitization, which softwares to use, which equipment, or even if they don't have the right equipment, how they can get to a really good outcome using day-to-day technologies. So one of the interesting parts is that, of course, I don't know everything about the digitization process or the technical parts, but we are bringing people from all around the world that they have similar experiences and similar and different innovations and how to work with the photographic archives and even other documents like epistolar archives or books. There's a lot of resources that they need to be digitized to be accessed through online resources. And one of the things that we really care about, it's not only access, because access, it's one of the pillars of work, but access is not enough. In my point of view, you need to have also a good design, participation tools, and of course, usability in your platforms whenever you're talking with digital archives. So AI right now, it's being used to implement and to design these specific parts of the platform to give a better participation space or give better tools for the communities to work and to, I don't know, to share their memories, to share their, even if they have oral memories or they want to preserve some images, texts, how they can participate more and how people can join to this enormous archive using different tools, different technologies, and how can they discover a lot more, not just a repository, but a living space.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I love the living space and the community aspect of these projects. As we think of sometimes a physical archive, papers in boxes, inanimate objects, and then to think about how the digitization process and how we communicate around them can really help bring them to life or breathe life into them once again. I think that's the part that's so inspiring about this type of work. I really appreciate the interoperability that both of you are championing and sharing of best practices between different projects and sharing knowledge about how to do this type of thing, because it is really daunting, I think, when you first start thinking about how to do something like this, particularly, Felipe, as you said, when it's a small organization that doesn't have a big budget. I wanted to invite actually one project that I think we might imagine as like one of these big budget organizations. Gabriela, I wonder if I could invite you, because you represent invite you to camera because you represent a historic organization, the International Press Institute, that represents free speech and rights of journalists all over the world. And you also have a digitization project. And I wonder if you could tell us something about your journey, trying to figure out what to do with the archive, how to fund it, and what your thought journey has been in sharing this archive with a wider audience.
Sure. Thank you so much for inviting me. It was a last-minute invitation, and I'm very honored to be here. Just to make it clear, I'm on the side of Felipe here. We are a small nonprofit. We have a long history. We are the oldest global network for press freedom, but we are a small organization in the sense of, so we are also struggling with this project, with capacity and these kind of things. So let me see what would be more useful. So just to give you a little bit of background, I've been working on this project with my colleagues for almost 2 years. I'm a journalist myself, and I've been working on the nonprofit community for a long time. So I don't come from tech, or I don't have the background of some of you. So this has been a passion project, and it has been learning as we go. And it's been the power of a network, really trying to ask experts whatever we don't know, and we are learning, asking around. And I've been amazed of the generosity of the community, and I've been also talking with Renata and with others. So I can maybe very briefly tell you about our archive. So let me see if I can share my screen, start presentation. Yeah, it's not working now, so it was before, but it's okay. So when I joined IPI, I was told, okay, when I went to Vienna for some of the first interviews, I saw this huge room that we call the Press Freedom Room, which is wall to wall with our archive. Papers, books, audio, floppy disks, cassettes, VHS, photograph, everything you can imagine documented the history of press freedom, 75 years. Last year, we had our 75th anniversary of the organization. So basically, that's all you could find on this archive. And we've been trying for, I would say, more than a decade to digitize this archive, because we really, really believe in it. And it's actually a gold mine of resources for researchers, historians, journalists. And now when press freedom is under attack all over the world, it's so important to go and see what happened in the past. So we've been trying to make this archive available and digitized. It's been a lot of trial and error. I would say that our ambition was really big at the beginning. We wanted to digitize every single piece of this, and then we actually I found how to share the screen. Okay, here it is. I think it's better if I show you. So this is what I found. Can you see it well, or you see it very small? Yes? Okay. So this is this is one of the walls that were, okay, let's digitize this. You cannot imagine the level of dust on the top, on the top of the boxes. So we started working with a consultant, and we started realizing very early on that this is a very difficult project. And we realized that even ourselves, we don't know what's in there. So we thought that a good way to be able to fundraise for this project was to start curating and creating an exhibition and trying to understand what's in there to show to the public, and then thanks to this, be able to fundraise. So here you can see all programs from our general assemblies, and this is kind of the bread and butter of our archive, the IPI report. And this is, I'm trying to tell story, trying to summarize. In fact, this week, we are doing a big announcement with that. So hopefully when you send the recording, I can send you the link of the big announcement. But we realized that maybe instead of trying to digitize everything, we should focus first on a sample of what we have. And we decided to focus on the IPI report, because that's kind of one of the most important things we have. This is a IPI's flagship historical monthly publication. It was published from 1952 till 2005. And it chronicles the main debates around press freedom, innovation, so many things. And we know, because a lot of researchers have been working with it, that it's really important. So we say, okay, so to make the story, I mean, these are some of the other things, the cartoons from the 50s, the 60s that are truly amazing. We curated an exhibition also on the gender aspect of the history of journalism and press freedom. You can see here the women we are relegated to copy the, how do you say, the copy, like the copy editing, like they are, the copy falls straight to the desk of the men handling it. So, and then of course, in this exhibition, we try to highlight the pioneers, the women pioneers. So, yeah, this is us. So, to try to summarize the story, because I know we don't need to take long, fundraising has been really, really hard, but we really believe in it. And then one opportunity came, advised by a lot of people, where we created a partnership with a private company that digitized material. We knew very early on that, first of all, we didn't have the capacity to do it yourself, the digitization. We know how, we asked around, we had a lot of options, from renting scanner, buying scanner, using mobile phones with a little tent, like we went, but we didn't have the capacity, and we didn't want this project to be a do-it-yourself. We wanted, if we digitize this, we want the best technology possible. So we created, and we will announce it this week, we created a partnership with a private company, which allow us to digitize the IPI report while keeping the ownership of all the material, and that gave us the digital copies of the material to do whatever we wanted with that. Those copies will be on a state-of-the-art search engine with a paywall. Of course, people can still do searches, but they cannot really see all the material. There is a paywall, but there is a partnership with more than 200 institutions, academic institutions, so researchers can still have access. And on parallel, because for us it's really important that this is available to everybody, on parallel we are developing another partnership with another organization that will host all these IPI reports without paywall and for free. That will take a lot more time, and that's where AI is coming into place, because to make able to do the metadata and have this available, they will use some AI tools to work like that. So I think my journey, or summarizing, is more in a traditional way. So we are still exploring how to use AI, and of course we have dreams, and we've been talking with Open Journalism Foundations about the press commons and data, and how we can use this material. We know other organizations, press organizations, that are in a similar situation. So I think a lot of the AI will come after. But for us, one of the priorities was to be able to digitize. And now that it's been a week that I can do searches in our own archive, and I'm amazed. Like, basically from one day to another, now we have access to the history and research as we have access. So I don't know, I think I went a little bit all over. It's such a long project of 2 years that is hard to summarize, but you tell me, Solana, if there is anything specific you will want me to focus on. I'm happy to share the announcement later this week when we are explaining more in detail how all this archive will work. And I'm really looking forward also if any of you have ideas of who could use this archive, because as everybody was saying, we don't want an archive that is there, okay, we digitize, we are done. No, this is just the beginning. We want to use it, and not just ourselves. We want people to use it.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining that and describing the journey, because I think it's so interesting to start in one place and imagine, yes, you'll be self-hosting, you'll scan it yourself, and then you end up going being led by different competing priorities and practicalities and cost and distribution, which is a big part of it as well. How do you make sure that people have access, or people can see, and that the people you want to see it, and the people that maybe don't is part of the what I wanted to talk a little bit about. Subhashish has to leave on the hour for personal reasons, and I wonder if I could just ask you one question before you leave, which I'd love to hear how others are thinking about as well. But one of the challenges that Avanzo has is around human rights content, content that maybe you wouldn't, because it might be sensitive still, or politically sensitive, like a lot of organizations have this too. How do you balance this idea of like putting it online and making it seen and heard or publicly visible, and being able to maintain community control over access, which I know is a big deal in indigenous communities, also in relation to AI. Like, you have been following this issue since before we started thinking about AI and big companies vacuuming data, or like the things that people are worried about now. And I just wonder, like, at what point are you at right now in terms of your thinking and how you're managing access and managing control as a community over the data that you are stewarding?
Thanks, Solana. That's a really important question. I would answer in a couple of parts. First is when we started archiving a lot of elder voices of elders in different communities, primarily because we knew that we would lose those elders very soon. The very first archiving work that I did was an interview with my grandma, and 3 years later, I actually lost her. So we focused a lot, as a project, we focused a lot on documenting the voices of the elders. For quite some time, we also documented mostly stories and narratives, songs, things that are not very known to younger generations, but are very well known to elderly community members. In that way, we also recorded the registers of languages that are almost forgotten by the younger generation, because languages are evolving, they are shifting, they're being influenced by other surrounding dominant languages and so on. So for quite some time, we did document a lot of contemporary narratives that would include violence and oppression, erasure of knowledge, and so on. And slowly we are moving towards that, right? So I wouldn't say that we have completely shifted to only contemporary stories, or only the stories of that tie to people's rights and justice and so on. So we're shifting slowly towards that. And that is for 2 or 3 different reasons. For quite some time, we didn't have any internal capacity to deal with mental health support, because often when people are sharing about trauma or violence that they have faced, or the communities have faced, they would need assistance from trained professionals. And since we didn't have that support in-house, we didn't want to subject people through trauma. So we didn't deliberately ask questions that would
make them relive their trauma or remember and go into depression and so on. The second aspect is a lot of people also needed legal assistance. We're talking about people that have been subjected to all kinds of violence and erasure and knowledge theft, intellectual property theft, and so on. Right. So, and we still don't have
I'm back. I think he froze. Is there, while we wait for Subhashish to come back, is there somebody here from Open Knowledge Greece who would want to speak about the ARXIVE project?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Professor Bratzas couldn't make it, but I'm here. I'm really excited to discuss with you.
Let's say because Subhashish has to leave. If he comes back, then we pause and let him finish his thought. But I would be so interested to hear about the project, the last project that we brought for this call, a project that you're helping to work on in Greece, and as part of the Open Knowledge Greece, and you could tell us about what it is and how it relates to AI.
Yeah, so I'm Elisavet and I work with Open Knowledge Foundation Greece as a partner in the ARXIVE project. In fact, ARXIVE is a Horizon Europe research project. It is EU funded. And it is under the umbrella of a larger European initiative, which is called the European Collaborative Cloud for Cultural Heritage, ECCCH, and which is basically a European infrastructure for cultural heritage data. And EU is building through a series of funded projects, and ARXIVE is a sub-project of those, a sister project of those, and it focuses on building tools for cultural heritage professionals like archaeologists, conservators, librarians, curators, etc. And the basic goal, should I pause?
While you were gone, we agreed that if you come back, we let you finish your thought.
Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. I also kind of lost the kind of thought. I was going to say that we were slowly moving towards documenting more contemporary stories that also includes recent events and stories that are tied to people's rights. Linguistic rights itself is a form of right, and that's something that we have been talking about for quite some time with people. But there are other forms of rights and justice areas which we didn't cover so much, and we're covering those slowly. As we are doing that, we're also seeking legal assistance, support from mental health professionals, so that we can document these things properly and also provide support to people. Sorry, I need to go, and I really apologize for that.
Thank you so much for coming back and finishing your thought. Thanks. All right, I'm sorry for that pause. You were just getting started explaining what this project with a very long title is about.
Yeah. So the main problem that we are trying to address is that all this data, excavation records, conservation reports, manuscripts, etc., are fragmented across institutions and different tools and software databases in formats that do not connect with each other. So ARXIVE builds infrastructure to link them and make them searchable and reusable over time. And we have two pilots. The one is the National Library of Greece, and the other one is the Archaeological Museum in Portugal. And yeah, I don't know. I could say maybe about we use AI in like a helper to do the tedious, time-consuming things. That's the approach. It's human in the loop, and the experts and professionals, you know, they validate, they curate, etc. This is the general approach, and we have a lot of focus on the community building, co-creation of the tools from the start. We are at the beginning of the project, so I'm saying the plan. I can't say things we have done already because, for example, now we are building hubs of professionals, librarians and archaeologists, and in order to create communities in 5 countries, and to start, you know, to gather the requirements the tools must have in order to be, you know, useful and in practice, and then co-create with them the tools. And yeah, we see AI as a, you know, plug-in to help with the tedious, time-consuming tasks. And I'm very interested in this conversation because all those questions and subjects are things we are worrying about, we are thinking about, we are discussing about, both about the use of AI concerning GDPR, concerning privacy and data control, and you know, because these are cultural data, who holds them, who owns them, and in fact there is a data governance issue which is a very, especially in Greece, because I know that, but maybe this problem is in other countries too, but in Greece archaeological you know, monuments and objects are owned by the state. You cannot easily have access to the data without the involvement of the state. It is very complicated landscape. So all these issues are very, you know, important for us, and I'm really happy to be in this discussion with you.
Thanks so much for sharing. It's a fascinating project and a big mission, like a big project to take on, considering it's a huge part of Europe participating as well in these thoughts. Alejandra, I would love to hear what you are thinking after all this and what your questions are or inspirations based on the projects that we've heard so far.
Okay, so thank you, Solana. So I have a number of questions that perhaps you can help me to think through here in this roundtable. Others, depending on the time. One of the things that actually is intriguing me is regarding the how are you dealing with extractivism in terms of that we are creating digitized archives that I mean are going to be publicly accessed, even though if they have paywalls or you know every kind of this form of verification that is not as easy to access. But in any case, if we see what is the common practice, for instance, of these big corporations like OpenAI or Google, they are like scratching the internet and trying to find every piece of data so that they create their, you know, the base material to train their large language models. And at some point, this is something that I don't know how do we deal with in terms of or in the moment that we are digitizing an archive and somehow we are making it public. So I don't know if you have some reflections on that perhaps can be of help for us or experiences.
Okay, I can start. So as I said, we chose the avenue of working with partnership with institutions that have a lot of knowledge and expertise and that. So in those cases, I'm relying on them and their technology to stop these bots. So in both partnerships, our material is going to be safe from this because of the kind of technology they use. Of course, once you put something on the internet, like everything can happen. And of course, for example, in one of the services we are using, once you have access to it, you can download the material because researchers need to download. But that for us, there is of course a limit of the number of pages you can download and you need to be registered. I think there are a lot of steps that avoid bots to just scroll and get everything. But I think it's an excellent question. And as I say, in this case, I'm relying on the expert technology of the two organizations, but also this first phase of digitization, whatever is there, we are totally okay to be in the public access. We are not, this is a magazine that has been published and sent all over the world. So there is no anything like sensitive, confidential, and that's something that I'm also thinking for the next round of material. We have letters, we have fundraising, we have grant documents, we have a lot of internal information from the organization or letters that the journalist sent to IPI, but not for public access. So that's, yeah, I don't know if I'm answering your question, Alejandro, because I think I'm on the same boat. We are trying to see, but as I say, that was one of the reasons why, not just because of capacity, but that was one of the reasons why we didn't want to embark just yet on creating our own platform, but relying on existing, proven, state-of-the-art platforms that can protect and safeguard our material, because for us it's very important. Of course, we want this material to be used in a good way to train AI. We want to read curricula. We are developing this, but we are not there yet. We are really open to ideas. So whoever has more ideas, I'm always happy to jump on a call or brainstorm. Alejandro, we can sit down with a virtual coffee and discuss our pains and opportunities and see what we can find that can help each other.
Felipe, what about you? Because you talked a bit about using AI for the development of tools or collaboration methods, but it must have also come up, how are these images being digested by AI systems? And I wonder what your thoughts have been as a community.
Same as Gabriela, we don't have the answer yet, but we have seen a lot of bots coming up to Enterreno and other photographic archives in OPAN. 2 months ago, we had more than 40,000 visits that they were from Singapore and Vietnam, and especially bots that they are scraping all the images, downloading, and that's a real structural tension here that we are trying to have open access, but at some point, we don't know yet, but we have to give some friction to these bots. I'm not from the IT world, so I'm still trying to figure out how to give this friction to the bots to not be able. We work with Creative Commons licenses, but of course the bots and these major companies, they don't care about the licensing, and they don't care about the rights of the images or the they don't care. I think they don't care about anything. If it's online, I think they're already using them. I mean, there are some ways, but it would be like really going backwards in the opening of the archives. We would have to close a little bit of the, for example, close the archive with a special user or signing up for every user, but that means that our archive is not available anymore in the search engines. And it's a big problem, what is happening right now. Wikipedia has the same problem. Now Wikipedia has the power or the advocacy to negotiate some how they use the data for the training of the AI. We don't have that power. So one of the tasks and the aims of OPAN is to federate this all the power, the little power that the little archives and organization have, is to be a bigger structure. So in the future we can hopefully negotiate or give our standards to these major companies that they are scraping everything from the websites. But yeah, we don't have the answer yet. When they are so big, these companies, we don't have any saying in this process. And I would be really interested that if there are IT or tech people here in this conversation, they could give an insight on the alternatives, or what are the options for these organizations that are trying to fight with open access, but at the same time they have to close the knowledge to protect themselves, because of course there is an economic part of it. All the bots that are coming to our website are using our resources, and that is adding up to the bill at the end of the month. So we don't want to have an archive for bots. We want to have an archive for people and for living people that they enjoy, that they can have discoveries, experiences, and not only downloading for training.
I love that. A living archive for living people. There was an invitation by Felipe, but also that I voiced in the chat. If somebody has something they would like to say, you're welcome to raise your hand, and we can call on you in the last minutes. You're very welcome. Alejandro, did you have more that you wanted to ask?
I have another two questions, but I'm going to probably ask only one to respect time. I mean, in regarding to this last question, which is definitely linked, one thing that worries me about digitizing one such as archive as the one we want to digitize is that these are archives that contain very frequently audio records and transcriptions, like field materials that can sometimes have names of people, photographs of people, and in a sociopolitical reality like the one we have here in some countries in the global south, like Central America and Guatemala in particular, El Salvador or Nicaragua, or other places. It's like we have, for instance, now a moment of stability and everything is going well, but we don't really know what is going to happen in the future, in a relatively near future. So the question about security It's so always something that worries, because it's like, okay, what if we put online documents that can eventually be used against people that we have worked with in the past. So I don't know if you have any reflections on that. Thank you.
Would anybody like to jump in? I guess no one knows the answer to that question.
It's such a difficult question. I think you know, a lot of what we do at IPI is advocacy and defending journalists in danger. So of course this is really important for us. When I say that this was not a concern right now, because this was a magazine, it was already everything that was public, and the last it was till 2005. So in this first stage, we didn't have to deal with this kind of issues, but a lot of what we have in the archive, or some part of what we have in the archive, yes, there will be security concerns. I think one way we are working, and as I said, for me, is the power of the network, and understanding that when we are working on these projects, we don't know everything. You are good with tech, but you are not good with this, you are good with this. So and this is something I discuss a lot with Renata and with others, that we've been working with a kind of an informal advisory committee for this. So I think this is one of the best things you can do, to try to get your advisory committee with people that deeply know about the security issues in Guatemala, but also in other countries that share similar things, and try to get a group where you can bounce either in the group or separately some of these ideas. I think I don't have the answer, but we will be on the same boat very soon. That's why we decided to start as a sample with this. That was a magazine, and we knew it was going to be safe to be online. And then the other material, maybe we will need to have a level of accesses. So some things will be available just for certain researchers, some things might be available per request. And that's where I think this advisory board, or whatever you call it, will be handy to try to develop a criteria, not just case by case. But yeah, everything we are doing, we are trying to document, and we are trying to share at some point. So I will be happy to keep sharing this journey and exploring what's double, and learning from other organizations that have experience with that. Our archive project is quite new in that sense. So yeah.
Thanks for that. That's, I think, very useful, practical advice. I was also thinking about it largely as a governance issue, like having the rules and kind of the methods in place for how to protect people, how to recognize risk, and how to keep re-evaluating and reassessing as time passes. Because if we've learned anything from this moment of AI, is it that it changes over time, just like the political tensions develop or change, like what might be risky now might not be risky in the future, and vice versa. So it's also about revisiting the question frequently, and making sure that there's some shared ownership that can stand the test of time as the project evolves. Elisavet, I wonder if, because the project that you're concerned with, feel free to chime in on any of the questions so far, but your project is focused so much more on not being forgotten and being seen, and making sure perhaps even that certain cultural aspects or social histories are included in AI. I wonder if that is part of it's sort of a contrast to how we've been talking about it in the past few minutes, perhaps.
Yes, in fact it is, and I'm a little, we not only we as Open Knowledge Foundation Greece, but we as ARXIVE project too. The focus is on getting the knowledge, making it open, and making it, connecting it, digitalizing it, and even training AI with it, and us. But yeah, you know, this is a very reverse question and discussion that I personally have thought about it, but not in this context, in the project context. And in the project context, we follow the EU directives and framework. The EU directives about all this is openness and openness on the data, openness on the software, openness on everything. The umbrella project is about creating a European cloud with, you know, all the cultural heritage data open and accessible. Of course, there is what Gabriela said is also in the framework, the layered access. You know, it's not totally open, fully open for everyone at any case. And also, for example, we create tools to help with linking the data, semantically attach metadata, extra metadata on the data. But these tools, okay, are open source, of course, but in the sense that, you know, for example, you may be a library in Greece and you have your own database, which is you have to log in to access the data, whatever. So it is a closed system, and our tools can be plugged in your own infrastructure. So there is this. It is. I can find the word. This flexibility. But yeah, I don't have an answer about, you know, abuse of bots and AI, abuse of infrastructures and data and culture, maybe even. Only the framework of, you know, the GDPR to protect as much personal data as you can, and also the cultural data, are they subject to any of these protective measures or not? But yeah, I only have thoughts about this.
Thanks for sharing. Alejandro, we have 5 minutes left before we finish. I wonder if there's something you would like to share about what you're leaving this conversation with in terms of new thoughts, things that you would like to explore further. How are you feeling at the end of this conversation?
Thank you, Solana. No, I appreciate very much the contributions, and it gives me, I think a good point of departure to think and to reflect more about how we are going to entail into this project. I see that at least there are two major pillars that are needed to be considered here. One is definitely the technological, which is something that, as Felipe said, is becoming every time less of a problem, because we have these tools that can code and everything and can do like a lot of things that we needed before to have a master's or a PhD in coding, computer science, or something like that, that now has reduced the gap between that source of knowledge. And I appreciate very much that about the contemporary technologies, because they are allowing us to do that. But on the other hand, is also these political and ethical questions that are super hard to tackle. And I think that it will be wonderful if in the future we get to have more spaces to share strategies. And for instance, what Gabriela was proposing, I think is a very interesting idea. I mean, how you create these committees of people who are going to be thinking about dealing with documents, etc. But on the other hand, we need to not necessarily standardize protocols, but in any case, we need to think thoroughly about how to deal with this real, especially when we are working with archives that are entailing information that people, I mean, in which people are still alive, and it's always like a big question regarding that. On the other hand, I think there is some. I think there is always I think the spirit that comes with open knowledge that is always pushing us to really, I mean, or inviting us to have conversations with colleagues, especially, I mean, I have seen a lot of colleagues that are super worried. They freak out very frequently regarding these new technologies, and they see in these new technologies ways for students to cheat. And I think it's a problem also that in the humanities, particularly, but also in other disciplines, people are not necessarily understanding these nuances that we are discussing here, we are exploring here, that these technologies can eventually be really helpful to reduce the gaps between the global South and North in terms of, I don't know if knowledge production, but at least knowledge circulation. So I think it's a challenge we have there. It's a big challenge because I see a big disconnection between people that are working in universities and other people that are being more open to this. Even the Pope has a better understanding. I think I read yesterday his last cyclica, which is, I mean, I'm not Catholic or religious or anything, but it's always good to be informed. But he has a better understanding that a lot of people that I see commenting very strongly against contemporary technology. So I think we need to push that a little further in order to use these technologies to reduce the gap between the global South and the global North in terms of knowledge circulation. So appreciate very much Solana, Renata, and everything everybody is doing in this regard. And yeah, that will be it. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing your doubts and your experiences, and for letting us document part of your journey with the Open Knowledge Foundation. And thank you for everybody who came and who listened. There's great links and information in the chat as well. We're going to be saving it. The conversation will be recorded, it will be online, and we'll share the link with you soon. Thank you. Thanks very much. Let's continue the conversation. Good night and good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are.